Hello developers, today part 2 of this habit node tutorial, we are going to focus on integrating a room database to persist our data throughout our application. So let's dive into this. For this, I have a reference in our developer documentation. Here we need to create 3 classes or 3 items like data access object, entity and room database instances to working of the room database, right? So you can focus on this, and here they give some information about how is data access object, entity and database. So in this tutorial we clearly focus on our application. So right, for this I'm just going to libs.toml to integrate the libraries in our application. So we need to create a room database, right? So room, Android X, room, compiler and runtime, both are things we needed here. Android X, room,
it's 9:30.
name, room compiler. So room version, let's say 2.7.02. so make sure you use your timeline updated version of room, right? Version.ref, just need to give the room, then just duplicate this, it's a runtime, ktx, just ktx. Okay, 3 things we need to be imported. We'll just sync now. I'm just going to build that Gradle within our application level, right? Meantime it is syncing. Fine. To use our room database I need a thing called KSP. Okay, so I need a plugin called KSP. So for this I'm going to use com.google.devtools.ksp, version equal to 1.9.10 1.0.13. so this is the KSP version. We need to use this within our application for creating an instance of room, right? libs.androidx.room.compiler. so this thing from here. Another thing is coming from implementation, libs androidx room runtime KSP. KTX, right? KTX, fine, important. So once it's imported, the setup is done for room database. So we need to focus on creating our entity file. So entity is just a model. This is our entity class here, which are going to store in our room database, right? Annotation entity, we are going to use our table name for this entity, right? So I just give the table name as habit table, and here ID is our primary key, which is a unique key identifier for every object, right? I'm just giving ID as a primary key and the entity here, right? Cool. Next thing we are going to focus on DAO, data access object, which is the intermediate for database and our application. Okay, so I'm just going to create a model, data access object, let it be. So you can create it as a user DAO, right, to avoid name conflicts. It is an interface. So as you everybody know, interface, each method can be implemented in another class, right? So similarly I'm just going to use select habit table, that table, import habit. Next we focus on insert function. So insert add habit. So we can pass as entity here so that it automatically insert in our local database, which is roomdb, right? So query for updated function, update habit, title, subtitle and ID I am passing here, right? Title, subtitle, ID. So update habit table, set title equal to this title. This title is this. Subtitle, this subtitle, right? Where id, this primary id is equal to id. Okay, and finally delete query delete from habit table where id equal to id. We need to pass the id here. Hint right. Cool. Interface of DAO is ready, and we need to create a final thing called database, right? Create a thing called database. This is abstract class. As you see here, we need to use like this. Here our data class is object.habit.class. This is an abstract class. Looks fine. And finally we are going to integrate these three into our application, right? For that I'm going to create a thing called application class. Main application. This is the whole application class which can be executed throughout our application. I need to add this here. Once done, main application is executed throughout the application. So here I am going to create a companion object which is like a static member, right? So for that I can give a thing called db, like habit db type of database room. Which is our database, right? Make sure you use our database, or else you just can use some other names also. Don't conflict it. OnCreate will execute whenever our app opens, right? So here I'm going to do habit db initialization, room database, room dot, just import this room dot database builder. Need to pass a context, right? Application context, name, this can give something name like habit database k class, which is database, our database, right? Build. So I can add some other thing, so it is just optional. Allow main thread queries, and just like that fall back to destructive mutation. This for development purpose. Make sure you need to remove this in release builds. Okay, so whenever our application created, it just set this database to our application database here, this database, and it has this data access object, and here we are going to use our things, right? Cool. So let's start integrating it in our view model. So for here I'm just going to integrate like our view model, right? Private var habit to do habit data access a bit, right? Dev main application dot habit db user top. So by using this data access object, we can access our queries. So let's say function of get habits, we want to return a list of habit. List of habit, right? Get habit. So add habit, we are just passing to habit. Habit now, add habit, just pass the habit here. Delete habit, similarly habit dev, delete habit, just pass the id here. Cool. So whenever you are just updating the habit, make sure you are adding it here. So this list update our habits, either if you update, delete or insert it, right? And one second, main activity the home screen, you need to call this here. Cool. Before running our application, we need to address few more things to avoid issues, right? So here we need to use the exact Kotlin version of our project. So here I am using 2.0.21. So I am just going to use this in our develop toolkits of KSP, right, to avoid those issues. Let's sync the project, and few more issues are there. Yeah, few more issues are there, like I just missed out something like this DAP. Here we need to use DAO, right? So don't miss out that database, and it is entity. Okay, and what it happened now, in main activity opens, it just fetch our habits and it needs to update into our data, right? So that logic is missed out. Like here data dot value equal to, let's say, items. I'm just fetching these items and assigning this to here and return the items here. So it recompose our UI and show our current list whenever app opens, right? And before that, we need to use the another concept called type converters, because while storing color, it cannot understand by the room database. So for this, I'm just going to use type converters. If we use time, date, and something like apart from this int strings, we need to use type converters in room DB, right? So for example, type converter, I am just going to name it as color converters. It's a type of type converter, one from color. Right, return color dot to arg. So this returns as integer and we can store in our room database, right? So else after fetching that we need to again convert to color. Just return a color. Cool. While storing we need to store it as an integer. While retrieving we need to return as a color. So this is the concept we are using type converters, and these type converters need to be initialized in the entities, right? After entities I just going to use type converters of color converters class. Same thing we are going to use here in database. We have one issue in our edit screen, right? So I'm just going to fix that also. So on our edit screen we need to use the current items color instead of default view models color. Okay, so I'm just going to use the current data order color, right? Default white. Fine. Let's run our project, hopefully it works. Yeah, nothing is there. I'm just going to write pana script room tutorial, let us say blue color, and save this. Cool, items is added here, and I just close and open our app. The data will persist, right? The data is persisting. Let's say green. Cool. Now I can edit this. Editing is working fine, and also I can delete this. Cool. So that's all about the tutorial. Hope you love this room database in simplified version. So keep supporting for further more tutorials. Thank you.